Former National Security Advisor John Bolton urged the Biden administration to authorize strikes in Iran directly so it can send a message. In an interview with CBS News' Catherine Herridge, Bolton said the retaliatory strikes fired by the U.S. military on Friday were the right thing to do, but also said he doesn't think it will be enough. They have declared a red line against any targets inside their borders, Bolton said. Well, they crossed an American red line by killing Americans, and until we cross their red lines, they will not view this as a serious problem. I'm not saying this first attack has to be regime threatening. There are a lot of targets inside Iran, quads, force bases, air defense systems, and others that would be a good thing to destroy, and which would send the message, he continued. If the Iranian government doesn't get it, we can send more messages. U.S. Central Command said it began airstrikes on Iran's backed groups in Syria and Iraq around 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Friday, after Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps, Quds Force, and affiliated militia groups. The retaliatory strikes come after 3 U.S. soldiers were killed in Jordan last weekend. Bolton, who served in the Trump administration, said that as it nears the 1 week mark since their deaths, it was surprising that the Biden administration did not act sooner. President Biden, who attended the return of the soldiers to U.S. soil, released a statement after the strike saying the airstrikes would continue at times and places of our choosing. The United States does not seek conflict in the Middle East or anywhere else in the world, Biden added, but let all those who might seek to do us harm know this: if you harm an American, we will respond. Bolton had previously called for the U.S. to send disproportionate attacks in response to the deaths of military members. Iranian officials warned Wednesday that the country would respond decisively to any threats from the United States. On Friday, Bolton said the approach chosen by the U.S. was just not significant enough retaliation. He also criticized the Biden administration for displaying weakness through the crisis, beginning when militia group Hamas invaded Israel in a surprise attack on October 7th, sparking the ongoing war in Gaza. With Yemeni-backed Houthi rebels targeting ships in the Red Sea, Bolton said he thinks it sends a bad signal to Iran, Russia, and China, and the more delay on acting, the greater the impression the administration is in disarray. What do we even say about this bloodthirsty psychopath? I guess we're going to just have to go piece by piece. So Iran, according to Bolton, has declared a red line against any targets inside their borders. They crossed the American red line by killing Americans, and until we cross their red lines, they will not view this as a serious problem. You know, I feel like the approach by Biden is probably measured and is attempting to seem aggressive, or rather defensive, I should say. Hey, you killed 3 of our members, so we will respond when you do something like that. But it's also trying to not provoke a conflict with a country that we really don't need to be involved in having some extravagant feud with. And I can't see how by Biden kind of looking at this and saying, okay, let's see how this plays out. Maybe it was something that is a one-time thing. That supposedly, according to Bolton, sends a signal to these other countries that the U.S. administration is in disarray. Like this, does he even know what that word means? That's supposed to be when you have some group or some organization or even just a team of people who don't know what they're doing. It's all over the place. I fail to see how that term is applicable to Biden's response. But really what we should specify is that Bolton is someone who does want regime change in Iran. He probably does feel like anything you can do to have a conflict with them, like, yeah, Iran was the aggressor here, but it probably would be of great joy to Bolton to be able to say, hey, they struck us, so too bad about that current government of theirs. And he's really just such a dangerous guy because he'll like, and I said this before, one of the biggest problems with American media is the fact that you can have a cabinet position or even just like any old government job, and as long as you come on TV wearing a suit and tie, you're seen as a normal person. And Bolton is not a normal person. He is a psychopath. He's a bloodthirsty warmonger who pretty much, whether it's Iran, North Korea, Russia, wherever, will seek to have a conflict with a region for the sake of popping out its government and sticking in whatever he views as the ideal version, no matter what personal cost it comes to American citizens or veterans, or shall I say soldiers. And you look at this, I'm not saying this first attack has to be regime threatening. If the Iranian government doesn't get it, we can send more messages. Well, of what personal cost will it be to him to have a strike that kills a bunch of innocent Iranians? What personal cost will it be for him to have American civilians, excuse me, American soldiers go over there, and in the event that these strikes send enough messages to where Iran attacks again, and the U.S. decides to declare war? Like, it's just it's a really, you know, the only thing I take solace in is that it looks like Biden is ignoring him, and I'm glad. Because, again, unfortunately, a lot of national security advisors do tend to get taken seriously. Just look at Henry Kissinger, for example. But Bolton is just the worst. I was so happy when Trump fired him. It's sad that the media still sees him as a person to go to as some expert on foreign policy, when really what he's doing is very dangerous. You have a former high-ranking official who gets to go on TV and beat the war drum, and he knows that no matter what happens, it's of no personal cost to him because he's not the one getting sent overseas to get murdered or to have a bomb drop on their head, depending on what country he's in. It's really sad that this is someone that still is seen as like the go-to person, and it really has a lot to do with the fact that after leaving the Trump camp, Bolton kind of like turned him out. He wrote a little book talking trash and did these different interviews called Trump's potential renomination in 2024 poison, right? And a lot of these like anti-establish, anti like Trump people latched onto him as some like brilliant commentator, but he's just a bloodthirsty monster that is upset that Trump wasn't as bloodthirsty as him, and is now upset that Biden isn't as bloodthirsty as him. So as long as you're trying to not stoke a conflict that could go on for years, he'll oppose you.